Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Tactile Knife Co. Chupacabra, a USA-made folding knife sporting a variation of the Snex Superlock. Now, this is not an official collaboration, but Snex does allow other companies to use his lock design. So just want to get that out of the way right off the bat. Thanks so much to, well, me. I purchased this knife. I paid full for it so that I could carry it and review it. I was just really interested in this variation of the Superlock on a knife profile that honestly looked really great. Personally, I enjoyed the Hinder MP1, and wow, does this profile remind me of the MP1 and honestly like 1,000 other designs out there. There's lots of knives that kind of look like this, but it's because this profile works, right? So this seemed like a real winner, and this knife, while not all knives get carried and used quite as much before review, this one took a little bit extra, and I'll explain why. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. Periodically, you can find these. I'll link, I think my link goes to DLT. They might be in stock, might be out of stock. You can check the link if you want. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. All right, let's go ahead and get a measurement here. The overall length of the Chupacabra coming in at about 7 3/4 inches overall. Blade length is coming in at about 3.35. Cutting edge is coming in at about 3 1/8. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom skills you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. You can see here that this is relatively similar in overall size to the 80-20.5. Definitely smaller than knives like the 80-10. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here once again, pretty close to the size of the Para 3. And then let's finally put it up against the Benchmade Group Tillion, or in this case the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? Good and not so good, kind of, right? I talked with Tactile about a whole bunch of stuff. I believe that the number of iterations they've done of this lock, like the number of times that they changed it before they released the knife, was 22. One of the things that they added to the Superlock is this little extra click there. I'm sure you can hear it. It's right here, right at the beginning, right there. That's real satisfying. Whatever it is that they're doing in there to create that, real satisfying on deployment. I like that. The knife is super smooth. I mean, crazy smooth. And the thumb studs, honestly, are pretty good. The part that I don't like as much, I mean, I'm not going to whine about it. I'm going to whine about it a little bit. This texturing on the back of this, right? I mean, I don't know that they necessarily need to change the shape of this, maybe slightly, but I think it just needs to be more grippy. I do like that the edges are knocked down, but I think the entire thing is knocked down so much that it just doesn't inspire confidence when you are disengaging it, right? The lock being back here is fantastic. The locking system itself is ambidextrous. The knife isn't, because you only have an option for right-handed people to, properly carry it, which we'll get back to. But I think this back here, plenty of spring tension, and it's really fun to play with, right? But a couple of times I found myself kind of slipping off of it, bending my finger like this. Like, I want to just do this, right? It's kind of like with the Shark Lock, right? Or the actual Snex Superlock. I want to just lay my finger down and be able to manipulate it. On this knife, when you do that, it kind of just slips right over the top. So you kind of have to like candy cane your index finger, right? Which I have to think about. I don't want to have to use my brain when I want it to be second nature, right? Just to put better words to that. Before I really get into this, because I've got a bunch of things I want to say, I find it almost an absolute certainty that Tactile will make a version 2 of this, because I think my complaints are going to be echoed and have been echoed by a lot of people, and I think that Tactile is going to pay attention. What they have here is definitely a foundation for an excellent model, but things need to be changed, right? And one of those things is being able to effectively engage this, whether you're wearing gloves or not. That could definitely be better. Outside of that, yeah, the action is fine. It's really cool. It's really fun to play with. Let's go ahead and do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's a little bit thick. They chose to put steel liners underneath aluminum scales that were already pretty thick, which is interesting. I'm not sure why they did that. But it does make the knife a little thicker than you might expect. Not so thick that you're going to be, oh my gosh, you know, I got to wear a belt today because this knife is going to pull my pants down. It's so thick and heavy. No, it's not that crazy. But it is a little bit awkward, I'll admit. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Lengthwise, it's a little bit longer than Para 3. Not quite as tall as either. Nowhere near the same length as the PM2. Let's go ahead and weigh it. I'm going to get out my scale. What are the materials here? We are looking at MagnaCut, and actually an impressive, this is credit where it's due. 63 to 64. That's great. I cut through, well, you know what? If I tell you guys I did it, right? If I tell you that I did it, then well, I can't show that one. She's a monster. If I just say that I did it, nobody believes me, right? I mean, this is going to make people cringe. But truthfully, I cut through some aluminum cans with this, and the edge actually stayed pretty darn sharp. I'm going to clean that off real quick. Just give you a look. Not that one cut through an aluminum can will do that much, even to a blade that's not properly heat treated. But this knife got a little bit more of a workout than, you know, a normal knife. And so I think there's a lot of people who like believe that if you know, cut an aluminum can with a knife like this, that it's just going to immediately go dull. And that's not the truth. Not only that, but boy, it didn't really do anything to it. Then the edge has stayed supremely sharp the entire time that I've used this knife. I mean, it's really impressive. MagnaCut isn't the king of edge retention, but when it's properly heat treated, man, it has an incredible balance of toughness and just edge stability, edge retention, all of that. Just seems really, really great. I was really impressed with it. So, yeah, but MagnaCut 6364, and then we have aluminum, hard coat anodized aluminum scales, and then steel for the liners and the lock itself. So the weight ends up being a lot heavier than you might expect. Yeah, 4.66 ounces. Now, that's not heavy. It's just heavier than you would expect for this, right? A lot of people want to compare this to the Vision R or the Vision FG. That's the official Snex collab with We. That'd be the Vision R, or the Vision FG, which is the official collaboration with the We/Civivi. Those knives are actual, you know, Snex Superlocks collabs, and they are much lighter, definitely, and arguably it's stronger. Like the locking system is definitely stronger. And again, we'll cover that. We'll get to that. But this is quite a bit heavier for a knife that I think people expect to be quite a bit lighter. So in the future, when there's almost inevitably a version 2 of this, these liners need to be nested or partial, right? You could probably do like a nested liner just, I mean, if it's absolutely required for some of the housing of the internals, just make it right around the part that's required. And then the rest of it can be aluminum. It can probably be a little thinner, and you can probably mill out some pockets. This is just solid material all the way through, and it's really unnecessary. And it also, I mean, the balance comes back here. It's noticeably butt heavy. It sounds really dramatic, but I'm being honest with you guys, and those of you who own this knife will probably feel the same way. It's just really weird. Like, you pick it up and it's like, wow, why does this feel so chunky, you know? So it's not bad. I mean, it didn't absolutely ruin my carry experience, but it is noticeable. It's just odd. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Believe the pivot is going to be a T8. Yeah, and then the body screws are also going to be T8. That one actually needed to be tightened just a little bit. Might as well go ahead and check all these. That happens sometimes as you use a knife. You know, it's going to back out a little bit. And then the pocket clip screws are Also T8. That's really nice. You know what would have been nicer is if they offered a lefty mounting position for their ambidextrous knife. I'm sorry, knife with ambidextrous locking system. But anyways, as long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. As far as getting in there and taking it apart with this lock, I mean, this is going to be spring loaded. There's going to be a little bit of holding things back and putting things back together, right? It's not going to be exactly the same thing as something like the shark lock, but if you've ever taken that knife apart, then you know it's not quite as easy as taking apart something like a standard liner lock. But totally doable, not anything absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness here real quick, and then I will get into the meat and potatoes of this knife review. Blade stock thickness is coming in at about 130 thousandths, right about middle of the road. Okay, time to move into the meat and potatoes. So yeah, this knife does take on the appearance of, wow, a lot of knives. There's going to be probably mostly newer people, right? I don't know what it is. When you're like brand new to the knife world, there's something that triggers, makes people scream. That's a cop, like the first time that you've ever seen something that looks similar to something else, it causes people to just scream as if they, uncovered some sort of major conspiracy. I got news for you. You got to ask yourself, how long have you really been around, right? If you think something looks like something else and you feel like you should probably tell somebody, unless it is quite literally an exact duplication. The answer is not only does it look like that, but there's like 1,000 other knives that have borrowed the same design, right? It's not like, Tactile is claiming to have discovered a unique profile, right? Or that the profile originated with the Vision FG. As I pointed out in the unboxing, or probably a live stream, the Hinder MP1 looks more like this, and it predates both this and the Vision FG. And there are 1,000 models that came before the MP1 that look similar to that. So the general rule is, unless it is an outright duplication, line for line, right? We don't really use the word copy because there's just the generic profile of the blade and handle are just kind of widely used, right? It's like if a spoon maker decided to make his spoons spoon-shaped, and another spoon maker was like, "How dare you make your spoon spoon-shaped? My spoons are the same shape." Well, yeah, it's a spoon, But anyways, I'm sorry. Getting back to it. It does look nice, right? It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It looks like a tool. It looks like a knife that you're going to take out and use, right? Now, this is a fairly expensive knife, but nowhere near expensive enough to keep people from using it, right? The price point on this is $250. That's going to be too pricey for some people. But again, if you're new and you're thinking, who the heck would ever use a $250 knife? More people than you could possibly imagine. It would shock you. Take it from me. This channel's been around for a bit. Lots. Let's just put it that way. Lots of people. Ergonomically, very good, very comfortable. You are kind of squished in right here, right? I don't like these designs that sort of block you in right here, but that area that you're blocked in is pretty good. This thing does stick up, but it's knocked down. That's one of the benefits of it being knocked down. Make it too grippy or too sharp, and it's going to be a little obnoxious. This area up here, I guess you can choke up. It's not comfortable. It definitely needs like a dedicated choke up position, just the profile, the general look of it, right? You could say that this is an enlarged sharpening choil, or it's this, or it's that. The fact is there's plenty of room there, just shaping the body slightly different. There's plenty of room to like make use of this area. Otherwise, this is totally useless, right? As a sharpening choil, it's just massive. So that should definitely be a choke up spot. The jimping on this is almost useless. I mean, you get a little bit of traction, but man, not a lot, right? We need some real jimping on this thing. The tumbled finish on this is very, very nice. It comes in tumbled or satin. And on that note, a lot of people have told me that these, like there's a bunch of videos on YouTube of these failing. I want to get into this real quick. Like 7 or 8 videos or something like that. And yeah, I talked with Tactile and they said the 3 that they tested from their first batch that failed were all tumbled. And they made adjustments to correct this. Now, they're not claiming that 3 in existence failed. They're saying 3 that they tested, right? So, of course, there are definitely going to be more out there from the first batch that failed. So that's probably a lot of what you're seeing. Maybe. we'll go more into that. But they said that whatever was wrong with the surface of the tongue, like it made it too smooth or something like that, it was causing the lock to disengage. And that their satin knives, they did not have an issue with that. Now, I don't know if the videos that have a lot of these, tested and that they're failing, I don't know if they're satin or tumbled, if they're all tumbled, whatever. But they were saying for this newer batch, which I confirmed I definitely have one from the newer batch. I got mine from Recon 1. They said those should all be fine. Now, admittedly, I use this knife like a normal knife, meaning I did not put pressure on the spine. I simply opened it and used it. To be perfectly honest with you guys, when I open it like normal, I can feel a little bit of an up and down click, right? So I took my thumb and I shoved that lock up there real hard. And then I went back and felt it again. And I know you can't feel it. You have to take my word for it. Absolutely no movement whatsoever, right? I can push as hard as I want on this. I can't get it to disengage. So doing that, and after doing just a couple of like light spine taps in the, I think it was the unboxing, or I can't remember when I did, I was like, okay, we're good to go. And I continued to use the knife and no problems, right? My carry experience and my use experience, I have to really be careful about this and tell you, to be honest with you guys, it was perfectly fine, right? The knife deployed, I used it, it cut really, really well. A little bit awkward. Wish it had a choke up spot. The pocket clip not being symmetrical or ambidextrous makes absolutely zero sense to me, right? But for the most part, really, really good. I decided not to really go after it because I don't like that, right? I know that there are situations, rare situations, where you might get the knife stuck, right? And the blade gets stuck or wedged, right? And you got to wrench it back and forth to get it out. And that's really the only natural time that I can think of where spine pressure or impact could potentially be a problem, right? If you're a rational, sane person, you don't go out and you beat on the spine of the knife. That's stupid. That's a stupid thing to do, right? A knife should not have to withstand, a knife lock should not have to withstand the force of a, Major League Baseball swing on the spine. That doesn't prove anything. But I decided to give it just a little bit more because this is the super lock after all, right? That was almost nothing, guys. This is a newer batch knife, and I'll show you again. We'll deploy that completely. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my finger off of that lock, right? I'll even shove that lock underneath there. But just a little bit more. Now, I don't expect to ever have that much force. As little force as that was, I don't expect to ever have that much force impact the spine. But I think, this lock should be able to withstand that, right? I know for a fact that I can take the Demco Shark Lock and the 8010, right, with the Cold Steel Tri-Lock and just absolutely pound on it. Now, I've voiced my opinion on that. I think that that's neat but useless, right? You're never gonna apply that much force in terms of impact to the spine, right? But I think that something like this should be able to withstand a little bit more, even if the vast majority of people will never, ever use their knives in a way that would require the lock to hold up, right? This is a tumbled finish, but Tactile, I think you guys got to take another look at this lock for round 2. And I think that this knife, needs to be released in a totally updated model. You guys need an ambidextrous pocket clip, right? And it's a little bit pointy, right? It's not bad. It's short, right? This is fine. In and out of the pocket, it was fine. But I mean, this is an ambidextrous locking system. You guys have to have ambi pocket. That's just silly. I like Tactile Knife Co. And I'm a huge fan of U.S. made knives. Huge fan. It doesn't make me feel super confident. In the rarest of situations, am I, should I even ever be concerned with spine impact or spine force? But I don't want to find out in the form of getting a nasty cut on my hands. I want the locks to be able to withstand reasonable, normal force, not absolutely swinging as hard as possible. I put those gauntlets on kind of as a joke, and honestly, it's the only thing I have down here that'll actually protect my hands. I should probably just get some regular gloves, but it just doesn't take very much It takes just a little bit. So yeah, the locking system needs to be looked at. Definitely. Like you guys don't need to be, this doesn't need to withstand a bomb blast. I mean, you can't do anything about it. There's certainly going to be like some YouTube, content creators or just, social media content creators in general who will, test the lock in absolutely extreme ways, right? And then come to the conclusion that it's unsafe because, it's like, you couldn't anchor a boat with it, right? Or you couldn't pry the door off a bomb shelter with it. Like, that's obviously stupid, but it does definitely need to be a little bit stronger than it is. So yeah, and I have faith that Tactile can probably come up with something, but I just want to be honest and let you guys know. I mean, that's the whole point of a review, is to give you guys my experience, my concerns, my actual thoughts, right? So I think we should be fair about this. I have heard, I think it's rare, but I've heard of the actual super lock, right? The collab, at least, with or probably Civivi, that most people are going to have the Vision FG, the actual super lock, on this guy. I think that's just a lot more common. It's way less expensive, right? Now, this has been my favorite dollar for dollar knife for a long time. And mine has never disengaged, and I have tested it about the same level of force that I tested, this guy that disengaged it. But, I mean, let's be fair about this. This thing should be able to withstand, far more, right? I'm dead serious. I cannot get that to disengage. This is, what does that knife cost? Sorry. Like $80. Is that right? 70, maybe it's like $78. Yeah. The blueprint's there, right? I'm not trying to like demolish Tactile Knife Co. Not at all. But like, he lets people use this. He lets people use the lock design, right? So it's there. I mean, it clearly can work. But really, my experience with this just makes me want to go back to carrying this again, because I like the operation of this one better. It's definitely more reliable. It has a choke up spot, and holy moly, is it way less expensive. A lot of that is because this is manufactured in China and this is manufactured in the United States. But I want to have a cool US version with Magna Cut that I can carry. I want to, and I would pay for that. But at the very least, I don't really, honestly, I really thought that I could disengage this. I really did. I'm dead serious. I really thought, I gave it some extra juice there at the end, thinking for sure I can get that to disengage. But that really surprised me. I don't expect to ever come anywhere close to the amount of force, right? So this showing that is just saying like, hey, this one can hold up and this one can't. But had this disengaged with three-quarters of the force that I gave it, I'd have been like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense to me. That's fine, though, because I'm never going to do that. The fact that it didn't is kind of mind-blowing, but it should at least be close, right? So anyways, I wanted to throw that in there. If you feel like you're a lot like me and you're never going to use this thing in a super intense way, you're just going to cut open Amazon packages, then yeah, the lock's fine, right? The lock's totally fine. But I think everybody's just expecting this thing to be a little bit stronger than the average lock, and it really isn't. It's the same or worse. Honestly, it's kind of the same way I feel about plunge locks. I don't expect much from them, so it's not really a surprise when they disengage periodically. That's kind of the same. I feel like a lot, like the average amount of force that's required to disengage a plunge lock is about what's required to disengage this guy. Now, it's possible that I just got a weird one and that everybody else in the version 2 of this is just, their lock is fine, right? I don't know. I don't know what needs to change, but I feel like something definitely does. Yeah, the rest of this, I don't know. There's not really a lot here. The fit and finish is really great. It looks like something that would be super duper dependable, and it looks like a tool, right? It looks like exactly, I think, what they were intending. But it just needs an overhaul, right? It needs to be lighter. nested, mostly deleted steel liners, pockets milled out of the aluminum, ambidextrous pocket clip. Definitely ambidextrous pocket clip. Better jimping here, better jimping here, and the lock needs to hold up, right? Definitely. So as it sits, I would not recommend this, but I would keep an eye on Tactile to see, if they make improvements. For sure. I would be interested in a version 2, an evolution of this, or an overhaul of this knife. Absolutely. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.